25 overlooked plays in history, Saturday at 9 Eastern.
We're going to shake things up. Why don't you walk me through the board?
I believe there's a championship team that we could afford because everyone else undervalues them, like an island of misfit toys.
All right, you look nothing like that. Let's start there. We're back with Paul DePodesta, VP with the Mets, former A's and Dodgers executive. I promise we're going to talk a lot of Mets baseball next time we talk to you. Well, look, the movie has been such a hit. What are your thoughts on Moneyball when you saw it on film? Or let's go back. When you first heard about it, because I was stunned it was going to be made into a movie, you were in on that, right? You were approached when it was being made a movie?
Yeah, this is back in, what, 2003 or 2004. They sold the movie rights, you know, to the book, and Billy, along with it, had to sell his life rights. So that's really the first time it came up. But at the time, I don't think any of us really believed that it was actually going to be made into a movie. Yeah. And it really wasn't until Steven Soderbergh got involved, was it 2009, where I started thinking that this might actually happen.
So you are depicted there. I don't know if Jonah Hill is more of a composite character at that point or if he's you. But at a certain point you said, don't use my name, right? So what went into that decision? Well,
I asked them. Actually, Sony was very accommodating at the time because they were under no obligation to actually take my name out of the film. But to answer your question, I think Jonah's actually more of the former. He's more of really an amalgamation of a lot of different people. He's not necessarily supposed to be me. And from my standpoint, even when the book rights were first sold, the movie rights were first sold from the book, I just never could really get comfortable with the idea of somebody else portraying me to the rest of the world. I mean, it was just a very unnerving situation, and I just never got comfortable with it. So even long before the movie started filming, or even before it was cast, you know, I had talked about the idea of not having my name in the film, and ultimately that's what I decided to do.
When you finally saw it, what did you think?
It was odd. You know, as you can imagine, it was very difficult to sit there. I watched it alone in just a screening room, and to watch a segment of your life sort of play out in front of your eyes was very strange. And like I said, I'd been unnerved about the whole idea for a number of years, so there was some skepticism on my part going into it. But when I actually saw it, I have to admit that the biggest takeaway for me was just a feeling of pride, you know, and I got a little, I started reminiscing about that time in Oakland and just how special the time was, and really how lucky I was just to be a part of it.
So that's interesting that you were a little moved by it then. I think like a lot of viewers were, but where between, everybody asked this, I'm sure, but like the confrontation with the scouts, the old guard and the new wave, which you were the new wave, how was that depicted between, you know, kind of a caricature, or was it accurate?
No, I think it was a little fantastical. I mean, it was made for Hollywood. Those types of interactions really never took place internally. I mean, really the only way that we could do what we were doing internally is if everybody were on board. You know, so from the manager, the coaches, to our player development staff, all the way down through our scouts, I think really everybody had to be on board for us to be doing something so different. And people really were. I mean, certainly there were questions and there were debates, and I think they were all healthy debates, but there wasn't that type of conflict internally. I think the movie probably depicted more of the conflict that was actually external, you know, and right. Portrayed it as internal.
You're with the New York Mets now, and look, the financial constraints are well publicized, yet you have a beautiful new stadium there, you still have star players. How do you use what you know?
Psycho Eric Burns of the day.
Great catch by Eric Burns. He got his whole arm over the wall.
He has put on the show today.
They love him.
We're talking a lot of Moneyball on this show, and Eric Burns was with the Oakland A's 2000 to 2005. Good to have you on the show here, Eric.
Thank you, Brian.
What was it like to be there where the revolution is happening from a player's perspective?
From a player's perspective, it actually started when you first signed with the Oakland Athletics organization, and I remember going to Southern Oregon, and there was a rule in our first at bat: we could not swing until either we had a strike on us or the count had gone to 2-0. Now, their idea was to be selectively aggressive, and that's really what the whole philosophy is about: getting on base and driving the baseball.
What was being said to you when you were with the A's? I mean, was that, hey, this is our philosophy, or did you just know it, or what was being said?
All sorts of things. I mean, it's incredible. I think about the time where Billy Beane would show up at my locker and say, "Burnsy, you cannot get thrown out when it comes to stealing bases." Mm-hmm. There's another time where Bo Porter, who's now a prominent coach in Major League Baseball, Bo Porter had led off the game with a ground ball to third base. And I think the next inning, I had ran into Billy Beane up in the clubhouse, and Billy goes, "If you ever swing at the first pitch like Bo did, you'll never play in an Oakland A's uniform again." I mean, he's nuts. And I really think, I look back at the movie, they did a pretty good job. There's definitely some things that were not, you know, obviously true in with the Oakland A's during that era, but the way they portrayed Billy, and Brad Pitt portrayed Billy, I think they did a pretty good job.
Did they come to you, though, and, like, explain, like, look, this is what the percentages are and that sort of thing? Was that presented to the players back then?
They came to me. I remembered specifically one time, I think it was either Paul or David Forrest, and we sat down and had a conversation about OPS. This is before anyone even talked about or knew about OPS, and it's very simple. You just take the on-base percentage, you add the slugging percentage, there's your OPS. Well, as players, you didn't really think about that. It wasn't really towards the end, until the end of my tenure with Oakland, that I realized really what was going on.
Do most players now, I know you're buying in, we've done these top 10 shows where you're talking wins above replacement. Are most players, what are their thoughts right now on the analytics side of things in baseball?
Players are always going to be skeptical of it, and I think you look at the defensive measurements, it's very difficult to tell.
Well, we say that too. You know,
Yeah.
It is difficult to tell when you look defensively. I mean, that's part of the whole analysis. But are guys buying in?
I think guys are buying in more now than they have in the past, but the bottom line is, Brian, and this is why I'm buying in more to it, numbers don't lie. They are what they are. And we like to think of some of these guys that, you know, they're our heroes, and for whatever reason, they've become these premier players in Major League Baseball. Well, look, you know, we all have peaks and valleys. We're all going up and down. And if I'm an organization, and if you're not buying into this stuff, you're way behind the curve.
Yeah. Eric, it's good having you out here.
Always,
great,
Brian.
Great stuff. Hey, thanks for watching. Tomorrow, big picture theory on closing, why your best reliever shouldn't be pitching the ninth inning. That's what I say. And we'll talk to John Franco. We'll see you then on Clubhouse Confidential.